Lights, camera, action, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Sree's daily global COVID-19 show. My name is Sree Sreenivasan, and it's my honor to gather and convene the folks around this important daily conversation around various aspects of the pandemic. Today is episode 230 in 230 days, and we're going to be talking about life in Hollywood and beyond, and filmmaking and much, much more. Meet Elizabeth BlakeThomas. She's an award-winning director and philanthropist, the host of the Filmmaking Without Fear podcast, just completed her 8th feature film, and is an advocate for having at least 50% female film and crew actors and crew on all films. So I'm very excited to have her with us, and you'll meet her in just a moment. Hi, everyone. I'm Sree. Thank you so much for being here. I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Journalism and the co-founder of Digimentors, a social, digital, and virtual events consulting company. Our policy: please don't cancel your events without talking to us. Don't even plan your virtual events without talking to us. We love geeking out about virtual events. We've done events for 50 people and 100,000 people. We bet your event is somewhere in between. So please get in touch. If you haven't seen the show before, in our first 215 episodes, we had more than 1 million viewers, 156 million social impressions, 386 guests, including 228 women. We're upping that ratio tonight. And we've had guests from 20 countries, including the chief scientist of the World Health Organization. Our archives are at youtube.com/Sreenet, and you can find us in partnership with Scroll Global and Scroll.in. We are super grateful to our producers, Rose Horowitz at Rose Horowitz 31 and Vandana Menon, Vandana_Menon. You will meet Rose in just a few minutes as she's going to help me co-host tonight's session. We're live right now on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. Please share this with your friends and family. Please tag anyone who's interested in cinema, films, Hollywood, what's happening, how is the industry surviving, and what is happening during the pandemic. We'll be talking about all that and much more with our guest, who I'm going to bring on stage right now. Please get ready to meet Elizabeth BlakeThomas, award-winning director and philanthropist, podcaster at Filmmaking Without Fear, who's just completed her 8th feature film. So, ladies and gentlemen, please say hello to Elizabeth. Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for being here. I know this is a strange time for all of us. We're all busier than we thought. Most of us are going from one Zoom call to another all day. So to add this to your burden at the end of your day, you're very kind. I see it's getting to be dusk out in California.
Yes, you're right. It is, isn't it? But I have the wonderful technology, as you can see, this light here. So when we were setting up and we needed to add a bit of light, my DP put this up there. So I've got my fake sunlight happening.
But it's working very well. One of my favorite lines of any movie is "Cue the sun" from the Truman Show. You remember that? I'm sure the director in you and many directors love that feeling of that all-powerful, that all-powerful side of you that might come out on a set on occasion. Not that I've asked any of your crew or anything, but let me ask you the first question I ask everyone else. How are you? Where are you? And how's your family handling the pandemic?
Well, let's go for where am I? So I am in LA in California, and out here is, probably pretty similar to a lot of places in that we're wearing masks, we're out and about, but in a very small way. I mean, I
ask everyone else. How are you? Sorry.
Oh, that's
all right.
Go ahead. Yeah, so I actually live on a boat, so I have been able to have a pretty simple lifestyle within this whole COVID situation, because I've been away from everybody whilst I'm on that. It's almost like I'm out at sea. So actually my mental space has been very, very good. I've had, I call this the great pause. I've had some time out from things and I've been able to catch up and work on projects. So personally, I'm actually feeling very blessed that I'm doing well and I'm working on lots of things. And then my family are mostly based in the UK. So I haven't seen them, and we have had a few people that were on flights to come over, and those flights have been cancelled. But I mean, these last few months have gone very, very quickly for me. I've kept myself very busy.
Well, we're glad that you are keeping busy, though I'm sorry you haven't seen all your family. We also hear that LA County is in deep trouble in terms of COVID cases.
Do you know, there are constantly different reports coming through. And so you have to kind of go with what you're doing in your own safety zone. And I look at that and think, okay, I'm being respectful of not going anywhere. I'm being respectful of understanding what's happening. And, you know, you still need to do normal things. I still need to go to the supermarket. I still need to go and fill up my car with gas if I've been to places. So there's a mixture. I feel like you can't always believe everything you see, and you have to create your own safety area.
And so let's talk about the film business. What should we know as lay people who love the film world and we're worried about this particular industry?
Well, again, it depends where you are in this industry. You know, if you're trying to maybe work on big studio projects with large numbers, that's a totally different ball game. Yes, they might have the money to do that, but then you're more susceptible with that amount of people to having a COVID breakout. Whereas you've got these smaller indie projects that are still sticking to SAG rules and SAG guidelines and COVID compliance officers, and they are able to happen. You know, you can have a crew of 20, 25, 30 people. I think we're looking at making projects in a different way. I probably wouldn't go and shoot my massive all action police fire engine, you know, 300 extra film right now, but I would shoot one of my films that I've got that's set in a cabin with 4 actors. So again, it just depends what you're working on, I think. And everyone needs content at the moment.
And that's certainly more people are at home and with more time on their hands. We're looking at MDE, Mother and Daughter Entertainment. Tell us all about this, please. Your company.
It is indeed. Well, my daughter, who would have loved to have been here tonight, but actually she is working at the moment, but she is part of my team. And we set this up a couple of years ago when we realized that we were actually doing something that needed this umbrella. And so, seeing as we are mother-daughter, it made perfect sense to call it that. And I brought in some other mother-daughter teams, and we were working with a couple recently, a mother and a daughter, a producer and an actress. And then I've also got another mother-daughter that are participating in one of my projects. It doesn't mean that I'm not including the guys, don't worry. But it's important for me to have an amazing team behind all of these ideas. And we were working on all of these concepts that were music, my books coming out, we have our films, a TV pilot. And so just to put it under one umbrella that we all own seemed to make sense.
And yeah, I see you've given your daughter the first spot here over its daughter above mother on this, at least on this page.
Absolutely. She's the priority. I mean, I'm a mere director and I come up with the ideas and then I say, here you go. And then she can take them off and do with it what she will. And we work together. And she's actually first AD on my next project. So she's phenomenal crew and cast.
That's terrific. So let's talk a little bit about the films you've done and what we should know about in your work. And then I really want to talk about your effort to get 50% cast and crew to be female in films. What is the story today in 2020? Let's set aside the pandemic. What are the numbers like after the Time's Up and after the Me Too and everything else? Did people pay attention to this issue of cast and crew being female?
It depends what area you're looking at. You know, studio films are different to indie projects. And what I always try to say to people is, look, I could be sitting there right now as a female director saying, why am I not being given an opportunity in a studio film? Well, I'll tell you why. Because first of all, I'm not putting myself into that world at the moment. And secondly, because you need to put in that groundwork to be seen and get noticed. As you said, I've just finished my 8th feature film. Someone might say, well, that's enough to be picked up and made, the director of the next Wonder Woman. I know a lot of female directors out there working solidly, working all the time, but we have to also be making our own work. And that's something that I pride myself on, making every project happen myself. I'm not sitting around waiting for other people. I'm also someone that likes to send that elevator back down. And so I mentor a lot, and there are a lot of young women and girls and people that are wanting to be directors or get into this industry. And I say, fine, follow me. I'll mentor you, be part of my projects, and you'll see what else is necessary to become a director. It's not just about being given a job. And so I think there are a lot of women out there working. I'm sure it could still be a much better split. And the first choice that people go to is maybe their best friend, who might be a guy. If you're already a guy, maybe your best friend's a guy. That nepotism is still available, and it could still apply to me. I mean, I have to say my DP is a man. He is somebody that I worked with from the very beginning. He's worked on every single film with me, and he is somebody that I trust and has been part of it. So we've kind of grown and nurtured. Now, if I'd found a female DP to start with, then that would have worked. And in fact, my TV pilot, I did shoot with a female DP. She was fantastic. She actually had to leave the country because of a working visa ran out. And so she's not back. So I'm using my other DP again. It doesn't mean that I don't want to work with women. I work with women in every other area, but that is a relationship that I've built and nurtured. And I think sometimes in these other worlds, like the studios, they've built and nurtured relationships. So it just takes time. But I definitely think it's improving. I mean, I've got no problem with knowing that I could call up and I will be looked at and taken seriously and listened to.
And that's part of what you have to work on, right? And that's what you're trying to have an impact for everybody. Can you talk a little bit about the idea of the value of those relationships and how you decided that this was going to be one of the things you were going to be an advocate for?
Yes, I think it's because I have a daughter. I think it became around because I know that I need to teach by example, first of all. And then also, if I am not the person out there employing women, my next film, I would say, is probably maybe 75% crew female, actually. That why would anybody else do it? Why, if I'm not doing it, why should they do it? And so leading by example, showing my daughter, giving her the opportunities. And then her next generation will do that as well. And so, it has to be start somewhere. So I'm starting it.
Excellent. And we should point out, I'm always worried about jargon. So DP is director of photography,
That's
which
correct.
To a layperson after the director is the most important part of the crew.
Definitely, definitely.
So let's take a look at your podcast. It's called Filmmaking Without Fear. What will I learn if I listen to this?
Well, I had a very interesting journey to start with. So I was a theatre director back in the UK, and then I came over here with my daughter, who was the actress, and it was when she was about 7 or 8. I was on a set with someone who had a child that was turning 18. And I remember that moment where she was very upset. And I said, what's the matter? And she said, I just don't know what I'm going to do now because this is all I've done. And that really stuck with me. And so when we were over in LA working on Isabella's career, she reached about the age of 14. And I thought, okay, I've got a few years now before she turns 18. I need to now be building my own career so that when she hits 18, I'm ready to go. And so I did. As soon as she hit 14, I raised a total of $1.5 million for a couple of years, and I shot 6 feature films. And so that set me off on this path. And so everyone might look at me and go, how did you do that? And, I was given the advice. I said, how do I become a director? And my best friend at the time said to me, you just say you're a director. So I did. And therefore that lack of fear, because I was like, well, what have I got to lose, meant that I took this journey. And so my podcast is all about that. It's all about the mistakes I've made, although I never call them a mistake. They were part of my journey. Otherwise I wouldn't be where I am. and happy accidents. That's what I call them, happy accidents. And so the podcast tells you about my journey and what I did.
Excellent. So what I thought we could do is just talk about this, one of your films, Pretty Outrageous, because it's also tied into your podcast. You had several episodes around this. So you were trying to teach people about the podcast, about how this film was put together. And tell us the story of Pretty Outrageous, and then we'll listen to a snippet of the podcast.
Okay, so this was one of my most favorite films, okay? I shot my very first feature film, the one before this, and I'd been given some money and it was fantastic, and I learned an awful lot. And the advice I got given was, now you need to make your next one. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to do this all over again. How do I do that? And I put 4 friends together. And I said, okay, guys, we've all got kids that are actors. We all want them to do well. I'll put a feature film together for us. And instead of you funding money to pay for a summer course, actually, I will put together something that is the same amount of money that you'd put for a summer course, but we'll put a feature film together. So we all put our money together. I got someone to write this story, this concept that I came up with, and we altered it a lot. And so the podcast tells us all about how that happened. And I shot over 10 days. Actually, no, it was a bit less. It was a week or 8 days. And we shot it where I lived, and we used everybody's houses. And I put this feature film together for $26,000. And it is one of my favorite films. Technically, there are things that are wrong, and the lights might not have been exactly right. And we weren't on, 4 years ago, the cameras we were using, weren't even 4K. I think they were, 2K or less. It's the most wonderful experience that then set me on a path that meant that somebody from that film funded my next one, and then my next one. So it was really the good beginning.
Well, that is awesome. So let's play the trailer first, and then we will watch a little bit. We'll watch the trailer, and then we'll listen to a little bit of the podcast, okay? All right, here we go.
In the sleepy little seaside town of Hermosa Beach, Southern California, school is out.
What are we gonna do now? Oh, Thomas got you for us. We can do anything. We have the best band ever! 1, 2, 3, 4.
Your father had a heart attack. We gotta fly to London tonight because they need us there by the
Wait, listen to me. We don't want to have to ask you, but we're desperate.
Who are you?
Oh, babe.
You should have asked for 200. You need somebody else in your band.
This summer, you can help Jess, Sophia, and Poppy search for that 4th band member to be pretty outrageous.
Have you done much singing?
Thought I'd find you in New York.
How are the kids? Are they okay?
Today, I'm going to be rapping the Gettysburg Address.
We all yearn to be held real tight. How about Jess singers or Sophia singers? Sophia Unicorn, great. Next!
Is your father here? He's okay with you polluting the air with this garbage?
Wait, I'm trying so hard.
Number 4.
That's a great idea.
All right, girls.
Sure, this fun is over.
What's late?
All right. So people can find this on Prime Video, on Amazon Prime Video. And let's talk about the podcast that you put together. You wanted people to understand how this came together, right?
Yeah.
So I will play here. Which of these? Let me just go down further. Which of these should we play? Here we go.
Any of them's fine.
All right. We'll play Elizabeth and Duncan share their experience with quality control checks and marketing as they sought to distribute Pretty Outrageous.
This was a very exciting phase for this one because we completed it.
Yeah.
We did everything.
Yeah.
So it had to keep coming backwards and forwards to have certain checkups and quality control. But we actually found an incredible, wonderful couple who run a sales agency called Leomark. And actually I'd met them through a film that my daughter had done. So again, that goes back to that networking. I didn't know when I knew them that this was going to be something I needed in the future.
Oh.
And they very kindly watched the film. They thought it was a lovely family film and they took it on.
Yep.
Now, this one didn't have any quality control issues, bizarrely enough. But if we'll talk about those in the future with the other films, but the checks that you needed to go through, when I said that I could put this on Amazon, what did you have to go through? What were your thought processes with it? Was it like, actually, it's fine, I just need to give it as is? Or was there something you tweaked?
Oh, there was a lot that needed to be done. Actually.
That you did do?
Yeah.
Okay, what was that?
So
can of worms.
Well, number one, I never experienced the quality control pipeline before. I didn't even know that was, it makes sense that quality control is essential for depending on what you're trying to sell it to. But what I had to learn was, number one, quality control is only as important as the outlet that you're aiming to get it onto. Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to do something in a much more like self-distributed or
YouTube, video.
Something in a smaller format, you don't have to worry nearly as much about the overall quality.
Which is what you had done in the past?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, for little narrative things, because we didn't enter anything with the intention of like, we have it pre-sold for distribution. Yeah. It's already going here. Like, we were at the point where we were still just trying to like get it, finished.
Yes.
And same with the other directors I'd worked with who their only prerogative was to make a movie, put it in festivals. It was not about selling it and making that money back at that point. Yes.
Wow, so interesting, and to hear somebody talk about it in that way. And these are short episodes, which is nice, so people can
That's
get
right. I decided to make things, the 9 to 12 minutes because I wanted people to be able to just listen to them wherever they were and what they were doing, and hopefully really, advice that first-time filmmakers don't know. And again, I talk about all sorts of things. I mean, it's not just about the way my films were made, but it's the principles of how I make films as well. So there's a lot to learn. And my book's coming out actually just after Christmas, Filmmaking Without Fear. It's my first book that's coming out. So you can purchase that as well as listen to the podcast and learn a lot.
Well, congratulations on that. And we should have you come back to talk about the book at some point. We'll be joined in a few minutes by Rose Horowitz, who's going to ask you a few more questions. But in the meantime, everyone who's listening, folks who are interested in the movie business, please tell them to watch this show, tag them this episode so they can learn from the story of Elizabeth and her daughter and their company, Mother-Daughter Entertainment. Let's see who's here already to say hello. We do this global tour where people tell us where they're watching from. Jonathan Borstein's watching from the East Village. He's watched 230 episodes in a row. So let me ask you for a favorite memory of New York, Elizabeth.
Oh, gosh, I love New York. Well, I can actually tell you my daughter's favorite memory because we go down to Chelsea Village every time we're there and she gets the chocolate pasta. And then I think...
pasta.
The chocolate pasta. Yeah, she loves chocolate pasta. And then I've got two of mine. One would be doing it's that walk that used to be the train line that's now covered in grass. I love doing that. And also there used to be, it has shut down now, but on Times Square there was the singing cafe and you could go and get milkshakes from there. And they were like Broadway singers that would serve you food singing.
Oh, wow. I'm not familiar with that, but I'm sure others, if you've been there, please let us know. And Michelle Raphael is watching and says, hi, Elizabeth, and hi, Sree. Michelle wrote an amazing cover story for LA Weekly about dating under COVID, and we had her and some of the people she interviewed on the episode, which was a lot of fun. Charles and Mary are watching from New Jersey. Always great to have them here. Charles is not just a viewer, but he's also a sponsor of this series, and we just love having him here. The importance of having sponsors in the work you do and producers and everything else. And this is the book that he's written. It's called The Inventor in You, a step-by-step guide to your first invention. And so always great to have you here. And Ashok is watching from Kerala in India. Have you been to India?
I haven't, and you know what? I am desperate to go. I'm absolutely. In fact, I did a mentoring class the other day for a film school in India, and it was at 11 o'clock my time, I think, whilst I was in Palm Springs, and I did an hour of a class there. That was really good fun.
That must have been late for them at their time too. And Stefan is watching and says, "Greetings, all. Wonderful to be here. Hope everyone is doing well." And Stefan has a great show, a TV show of his own, a web video show of his own called Spin It Social, about video and social media and photography during and how photographers use social. Rose, of course, is live tweeting from Connecticut. And Stefan says, "I'd like to connect you to another filmmaker and dear friend of mine in LA, Angela Mancuso, also known as Angela Filmmaker on Twitter. I tweeted you both. Hope you both connect."
Thank you.
And we have Therese watching from Redondo Beach.
That's all right. Hi, Therese. Bonsoir.
She's a New Yorker who lives there, so she's out there. And Stefan says the High Line is one of the best places to walk along. So happy to say it's reopened now after 8 months of COVID closure. I did not realize it's open, so thank you. See, I'm learning things as well. And Rose says, we've been to that restaurant with singing actors. And Twyla says, Ellen's Stardust Diner.
That's it.
It's overrun with tourists, so I don't think New Yorkers get to go as much. But I wonder what about all these places, even your favorite restaurants in LA, how are they doing? We worry about all of these places.
Well, it's funny. I have a list on my phone actually that says places to go outside, because I've had to go through them and go, where can I go? What can I do? One of my favorite haunts shut down, as well as I've got a couple that I feel safe going to because they're totally outside. Again, I'm taking things very responsibly. I'm making sure that I am only going to a place very infrequently, that's in my own circle, wearing my mask, and there are a few places now, but I stick to the same places near me, really, in Hermosa.
Okay, Therese is there through June, so I hope you're able to connect. Talk to us about what you've been hearing about how the theaters are responding to movie theaters. What is happening? I saw AMC is doing rent outs where people can rent out a theater for $100 and see their own movie. They're just trying to find any way to make some money in this moment.
Yes, I mean, I think that is genius. I think it was like $99 and you can rent it out for 20 people. I mean, it's a brilliant idea. Even if you wanted to go and spend the day there yourself, you could say, okay, I'm going to rent this out and watch a movie and have the experience. I mean, it's a very difficult time for that from a theatrical release point of view. I have had two friends who've had their movies, and I went to their one of their drive-through premieres. That was for the Bill and Ted movie. It was a very unique experience, very strange. I've got another friend who's got a film festival at the moment that is running purely in a drive-through theatre. It's not the same. People are missing going to the theatres. In fact, I just the other day said to a friend, oh yeah, we'll go to the theatre when you get back. And he said, they're not open. I was like, yes, I totally forgot that. So it's a very sad time for it. I do have a friend who has a theatre in the center of LA, a private one. He is opening it up again. He's made the chairs, he's spread them out. He's opening it up for special occasions. Look, I mean, who knows when we're going to be going back to something like a theatrical release. My daughter's movie that came out, the big Disney movie on Disney Plus, they couldn't have their premiere. They couldn't do what they'd normally do, and it just went straight to being screened. So I hope things change for that soon. And I think people are going to have to be inventive. But, we're all in that position of not knowing at the moment, aren't we?
Yeah, and that's what makes it so difficult for people to understand and where things stand in terms of all of this. So I see that Rose Horowitz, our producer, who's always doing great work in terms of helping us book our guests. And she's also a journalist and the founder of the hashtag Women to Follow. And so I'm going to bring her on to say hello and ask you a few questions. I was serving up the softball, so now she's going to ask you the really tough questions. So over to you, Rose.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us, Elizabeth.
Oh, thank you for having me, Rose.
It's great to connect with you through
journalist and the founder of the hashtag
Well, and it's lovely. My daughter's second name is Rose, Isabella Rose. It's a beautiful name.
Just want to say that I think maybe, Rose, you have our show on one of the channels. You can turn that off. Maybe that's what we were here. Yeah. So
Listening to it again.
yeah, exactly. It's so good.
I want to listen to it twice.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just on one of the channels maybe open. As soon as she's able to take care of that, she'll give me a thumbs up, and I'll bring her back on.
No
And one of the things that we all have to be thinking about at this time is, how do we keep the folks who work with us, how do we keep them engaged? How do we keep them motivated? What are your secrets for keeping your company and everyone engaged and motivated?
Well, it's definitely about keeping busy and keeping proactive. I mean, I've had my team, I've had some wonderful messages from people just saying to me, thank you, because if we didn't have this to work on, we'd have just been sitting at home. So people have been very proactive and wanting to come forward and be part of my company, which has been lovely. And I think it's about not talking about the situation. It doesn't mean we're hiding from it. But I was talking to someone the other day and they said, well, you're the first person I've spoken to that hasn't said anything about COVID or how are you feeling? I was like, oh, okay. Are you okay? And they were like, no, it's good. It's a good thing that you didn't mention it, because you've completely focused me and refocused me on what other things are going on. So I think it's about understanding from a mental health point of view, having that time out, understanding that it's okay to not get things totally right the whole time, but having a focus. Like yesterday, I decided to take a day off from doing what I was doing, which is working on my next project. And initially I was like, oh, should I be doing that? And instead I read one of my latest books, the Stephen Pressfield one, which was The Artist's Journey. Loved it, read it from cover to cover, 10 to 1. Then I took myself off for a chai tea latte. And then I came back and watched something terrible on Netflix. It was okay to do that. So I think I've given my team that understanding that look after yourself, stay focused, stay driven. And by the way, I give them a lot to do every single day.
Do you find that that people are more resilient than you thought?
In my world, I think I'm not giving them the opportunity to think about anything else. But I think my mother, I'll give her as an example, she is very busy and working on her projects. So she has definitely found this a time where she has found strength. Other people, I think it's very, very hard. And I don't expect anybody to behave like I would if that's just not in their DNA. Everybody has to be treated differently. And it's about understanding that. And if I can at least motivate and support and help and guide, then that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly the way to go. Let me bring Rose back.
Hi,
Rose.
Thank you. Okay, so tell me a little about the newest film. I'm not sure if Sree asked you that, but the film Evie Rose, and how that idea came to pass, and what made you think of that idea.
Yeah, so Evie Rose is based on a true story. My daughter was best friends with a lady that was 100 years old. So when we first came over here, she lived 3 doors down from us. My daughter was only 10 and the lady was 94. And they were best friends for 6 years. And when I say best friends, I really mean that. My daughter would run down there and spend the day with her because she was homeschooled as an actress. So this was a wonderful person to get to know. And she was actually called Millie. Millie had lots of wonderful stories. She taught my daughter how to gamble with pennies, play cards, shuffle. They used to watch old-fashioned TV programs together, and they just had this very unique relationship. And then it was unfortunate she passed away when she was 100, and people might say, well, of course she passed away. Actually, she got ill and the doctor misdiagnosed her and she couldn't recover from that because she was 100. Otherwise, she would have had a couple more years, I think, in her. And so it's the true story based on their friendship and the last few days of her life. And it's a tearjerker.
Thank you.
I think the sound is down. But whilst the sound isn't playing, oh, there we go. Is that going to work? No. Whilst the sound is down, I'll tell you. So the lady that played Evie Rose is wonderful actress Terry Moore, who is actually 93 years old, and she was Academy nominated for one of her films when she was much younger. She's an incredible actress, and it was great to work with her. And we actually shot this in her house. And I will tell you something interesting. She broke 2 or 3 ribs before we started shooting. And so we had to quickly move. We basically had a choice. We had to cancel the whole project. And I called and I said, so you're supposed to mostly be in bed. How would you like it if we came and shot this at your house? She was like, I would love that. Thank you. So we moved the entire crew, the entire set. We used her proper house, and she actually legitimately lay in bed with 3 broken ribs for the entire shoot. She was a trooper, but she didn't want us to not do it, so that's why I kept going.
And at this point, she wasn't sick, as you described when she.
No. Well, her ribs were broken, but there was nothing that she could do about it. So she was just lying in bed, lying on the sofa the whole time.
And how did your? Now we're gonna.
This is
Awesome. And how did your daughter react when she did die? How old was she at the time?
So Bella was 16. It was devastating, life-changing, devastating.
Really?
It was the first death she'd experienced. It was her best friend. I mean, this is 2 years ago, and it's still incredibly hard. And obviously to make this movie was incredibly hard for her to write. I mean, she wrote it and starred in it, and I mean, I can't watch it without crying. You know, it's very emotional.
And did this film prompt you to start your company, your mother and daughter, or you had that? Well, you had that idea earlier.
I had that. I mean, the concept was kind of 4 years ago without me knowing that that's what we were doing, because she was involved in everything with me. And then it was only, I mean, we might be 2 years now that I created the umbrella and said, look, we're doing this. Let's put everything together.
And how is she involved now with the business? Is she writing?
She runs it with me. We come up with the projects together. She sometimes acts in them, sometimes doesn't. I mean, it's, you know, I couldn't do it without her. That would just be mother entertainment, which I don't think has the same ring to it.
And tell us about your another film that you won an award for, Unseen.
Yes, Unseen. So, you know, as a filmmaker, there are subject matters that I like to experience and work through. And there are projects that I think I would like to have a go at creating. This was one of those. It was a subject matter that I was told a true story when I was at a Sundance Film Festival, and I thought this was important to make a movie about. But I didn't want to just make it in the way that a lot of other people do, which is quite through shock factor. And so I came up with a concept, and I funded it myself, and we put it together with an amazing team and my lead actress, Ryan Brown, and Isabella. And I personally, I think it's an excellent way of showing a very serious subject matter, which isn't just about child trafficking. It's actually the role that technology plays in the facilitation of child trafficking. And social media, especially being a mum of a daughter who is on social media, and not very much, and I know all her friends are, and they create these fake pages, I wanted to kind of merge those two subject matters to show how they relate, because I just don't think people realize. And even when I was making it, there were moments when I went, oh my gosh, I didn't even think that through. I didn't know that. And so it was very important for me to share that with people. And the way I did it also meant that every age could watch this film. This isn't a film that parents are going to say, oh, my child can't watch this, it's inappropriate. It was for all ages to start a conversation.
How long is the film?
It's 21 minutes.
Okay. And did you base this on a true story?
Yes.
Tell,
Yeah, totally based on a true.
Tell us about that.
Well, I was told this story, and I thought that this is the story that needs telling, because it's something that could happen to anybody, and it is. It's about a young girl who believed that there was a competition, an audition that was real, and she got taken, and through the use of social media. You know, it's so easy to get misled. We trust what we see on these contraptions, and it's not always true.
And do you monitor how, or when your daughter was, before she turned 18, how much did you monitor her social media?
I'm very fortunate because my daughter is an exception. I'm the one that has to tell her to go onto her social media. I don't have a normal child. I have the most phenomenal daughter who really understands and respects things and isn't interested in social media. Her best friend was a 100-year-old lady. She likes to play cards and board games. And so actually she wasn't my target audience for it, but with the use of her and understanding of social media, we were able to work out together, what do her friends do? How do her friends use social media? But she has to be on it for her profession, but that's it. I mean, that's really the only thing that she does.
And what are some 3 tips that you could give to parents if they're watching over their children's social media?
Well, I will say that a lot of parents don't realize that their children have fake pages. A lot more than we realize. So if there's any way that you can start a conversation to find that out, because they think that they're being clever, but actually those social media pages might be private, but they can still get out there to the public. So have that conversation first and try and build an understanding and a trust. Secondly, the hashtags. I didn't realize that these predators specifically look for hashtags that say hashtag hate my parents, hashtag depressed. They find those hashtags and go through those pages to find those people that are feeling like that and then target them. And then the third thing I think would be to say, to have just a much healthier relationship with social media and to really understand that whatever you put out there stays there forever. And look, if we need to show by an example, teach your children and show them, look, I'm going to put something on here. Have a look at how many people this gets to. This is out there forever. The future boss that you don't even know is going to be your boss can now look back and find this. And again, just an open conversation, I think.
Thank you. I think that's one of Sree's always, when he teaches, he always tells everybody, everything that's on the internet is there to stay. And
yes,
I don't think it's very hard for, my kids maybe started, my youngest wanted to be on Instagram, they really had no concept that this is on forever and, has consequences.
Yeah,
so
well, my daughter didn't even go onto Snapchat. I said, look, it's just unhealthy. Don't do it. She doesn't do TikTok. I think we tried, we went on, we're like, no, not for us. So again, it's also about understanding that isn't your life. You don't have to think that social media is going to be the way forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how do you find the atmosphere here for making films as a woman in Los Angeles compared to the UK?
I never made a single movie in the UK. I was never in the industry in the UK, but I can definitely tell you it's a different vibe, whether you're female or male. In England, it's a much smaller environment. It's a much more closed industry. You haven't got that ability to be in a cafe and accidentally run into Steven Spielberg or whoever, whereas out here, the opportunities seem to be much more open. I think the weather helps out here because you're out and about meeting people, the networking out here. This is where the major festivals are happening. This is where the major events are happening. I could sit at one of my hotels that I go to and I sit and have a cup of tea and Ben Affleck's next to me. I've met several actors and actresses that have been in my movies because I've accidentally run into them. So it's a different vibe. And as far as a female male is concerned, again, I'm sure it's the same type of thing because in London, it's a much more closed environment.
So does that make it harder for a woman to get in that field if it's more closed than in the US?
Well, I think it's just more close in the sense of you physically can't accidentally run into people and meet people. So whether you're a male or female trying to break in, I know it's harder.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what words do you have for somebody trying to make it in the business today? Oh, for women.
I would say to people that I think it's a concept that people say, I want to become a director. Okay, so what are you doing to do that? What are you doing to not just educate yourself, but basically just going for it? And that's kind of what my podcast is all about, because my first thing I did is this tiny little thing on my phone for Isabella, actually. I wasn't doing it for me as a director, but I was able to understand by filming something and putting it together and editing it on iMovie. I understand how pieces work now. And look, people have been to film school, that's all great. And maybe that's the extra steps that people need to make connections and learn things. I came from not knowing any of it, only having been on my daughter's set when she was acting. So, I'd picked pieces up, but nothing major. And so by actually doing it, if you really want to go and do this, there is nothing now that should stop you. And I think people have the perspective of, but that's not a studio film. But that's not a big budget. It doesn't matter. If you've got a couple of friends who are actors and you want to write something and it can be 5 minutes long and you've got that phone and that technology, go and do it, because you'll make all those mistakes and you'll learn. And I know that's why I am where I am, because I was able to really experience what it was like and understand every single element of it. I've been a PA on my own set. I've made the coffee. I've been a producer. I've been my director. I'm my first AD. There's no excuse anymore.
That's awesome. We have a question from Therese Steiner, who usually lives on the East Coast, but I think she has a daughter in LA, in Redondo Beach. And she's asking, is all your work fiction, or do you make any documentaries? And if not, what particularly draws you to telling stories related to themes such as human trafficking through film?
So I'll kind of answer backwards. I think because I have a daughter, I always find subject matter that relates to her, actually. And that could be, it could be anything from child trafficking to even relationships, father-daughters, mother-daughters. There's a lot of subject matters that encompass being a mother. And I generally tend to go towards those. As far as documentaries are concerned, I actually have just finished a short documentary that I shot during COVID with an amazing young filmmaker I met at Sundance. That's called Consume as Little as Possible, and that will be going out at the beginning of 2021. And I also have a couple of other ideas for documentaries. So a lot of my stuff is fiction, but based on concepts or ideas or things that have happened in my life, or subject matters that I found true stories for. And then this documentary was a new concept because during COVID, it was a really good way of still making projects and being able to be around people in a safe way. So I'm very excited for that to come out because it is excellent.
And can you tell us what that's about?
I can, yes. It's very COVID driven. It wasn't initially, I was working on it pre-COVID, but the subject matter is so prevalent right now, as in the subject title, Consume as Little as Possible. It is all about what consumption is doing to us as a human race, to the planet during COVID, how that's affecting us by not consuming, what's happening to the environment. It's actually based on a chap called Gary Golding, who was one of the Naked and Afraid contestants, and he had it tattooed across his back, and it's his whole ethos. And so we've been able to bring in these other amazing speakers who are scientists, humanitarians, philanthropists, who are all experiencing and discussing what it's like if we as a human race stopped consumption.
Interesting. Thank you. And what about people who have kind of the opposite view, that we're also deprived now, that we, missing the things that we do love?
So I was fortunate enough, I have a mentor. I'm actually a Kabbalist, so I study Kabbalah, and I have a mentor who decided to help us all through this COVID situation by giving us 21 days of kindness meditations, 21 days of love. And I did one that was 21 Days of Abundance by Deepak Chopra. And that transformed my life, because I will say, I mean, I live on a boat. I live very frugally. I'm not somebody that consumes. I have one tiny car that I share with my daughter. I live in a very different way to a lot of people in LA. And so for me, actually, what I learned by doing this abundance meditation was I was abundant in time. And that got me through these last 8 months, because when I realized that, I was able to put my life and soul and time into achieving so much, because I realized that that's what I was abundant in. And I think people can look at things in different ways. And there are people that enjoy consuming and purchasing. And of course, that needs to be there to help the economy go. But I've really enjoyed going through my wardrobe, looking at what I already have, whilst at the same time, there is a local store that I have helped, and I've purchased a couple of things throughout this time because they need to be helped as well. So I think it's finding a fine line between what we actually need, what we don't need, reusing, reducing, recycling. I've actually come up with a fantastic TV show that I'm shooting with my daughter called Captain Gemma and the Space Pirates. There's the teaser actually on my mother-daughter entertainment YouTube channel. In fact, people can go on there and see all my teasers, my pilots, my trailers. But this one, Captain Gemma and the Space Pirates, is actually an environmental travel show that I'm shooting during COVID because it's all on green screen, but to teach the younger generation about the environment and consumerism and helping the planet whilst learning about the countries and traveling. So I think it's just where we all are in our life. It's understanding where we all are. It's accepting who we are and trying to do things in a different way at the moment and not judge.
Interesting. And you know, in some ways, isn't that a luxury though, to be able to take, you know, to have this abundance of time? You know, many in America do not.
Yes, very much so. But again, I've created that lifestyle. I actually run sessions, medicine with words. I'm a storytelling healer. So I also help people understand that they can have this abundance of time. I help them realign themselves holistically with happiness. And it's a huge thing that I just do privately in my own time for people. And so everybody has got the ability to have this and realize it. It just, we're all going to be doing it in a different way. And so, as I said, it's never about judging someone and saying you should realize you have this. But when we re-look at things in a different way, as I said, this great pause has allowed me that time even more. So, so if anybody wants any help with that as well, as I said, I'm more than happy to talk to people.
Here are some more comments that are coming in. Stefan says, Elizabeth, although I'm a social media and visual strategist, I'm thrilled that my son, 14 next week, has no interest whatever in social media. However, parents must also be aware that chat rooms on gaming devices. I'm always on him about that. He loves his video games, and I'm on it, hyper aware. And Twyla is talking about his son and saying that he's extremely clever and curious. And Twyla says, bless you for remembering and honoring girls and women, Elizabeth. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And my mom is watching from Kerala in India. So if you get to India and you get to Kerala, she will be happy to meet you and talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
So before we wrap up, we'd love to get some final thoughts from you and some words of advice for people who are thinking of getting into the filmmaking business. You've had obviously lots. Ooh, who's that?
This is Chai. She was just getting a bit antsy, and I thought she should just say hello.
Yes, hello, Chai.
She's accidentally in my movies often.
What, did you have to pay her SAG rates or what?
No, not yet. Don't tell her. She doesn't know that.
Extra treats. So please give us some words of wisdom for people who want to get into the business.
I mean, I always say it's about having no fear, because you have to say, well, what's the worst that can happen? You know, what is the worst? There is nothing that can happen if you decide to just go ahead and do it. Okay, what? So no one sees that particular movie you shot, or no one sees. So what? You'll have learned something. And it's all about the journey. That's really important. If everybody can understand that everything leads to something else, and that's the purpose of it. It's not just I'm on my about to start shooting my 9th feature. I'm nowhere near where I'd like to be. I'm just going to keep on going. But every time I do something, I'm learning something more. I'm meeting new people. My life is just filled with this wonderful experiences. And so I would just say to people, just go for it. If you've been putting it off, don't. And also, if you've got this amazing project that you think, oh, I need 10 million for it. Well, okay, why don't you do something first for $10, see what you can learn from it, and then you might change your mind, you know, just go for it.
I love that. I love that. Why? Let's see what you can do for $10. I mean, I would tell people who come to me about ideas around doing things for podcasts and things like that. I'd say, if you are not willing to do it for no money and no audience, how would you do it for all the money in the world and all the audience in the world? If you put that in there. And Stefan says, oh my God, chai is adorable. Love that name. And chai is my favorite thing to drink in life.
Thank you. No, and I often say about that, I'm the hardest working, happiest woman in Hollywood that earns nothing. But it doesn't matter. You know, I earn what I need to earn. I make it work. And I'm happy and I'm learning, and every project is a new growth experience. But you're right, if you can't do it when you're not earning anything because you don't have that passion and that love, then you're not going to, you know, it's not just about the money. You've got to know that you're putting the time and effort in, regardless of what the outcome is.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. We will let you go and get back to your evening out in California. Rose, and
location scouting. I'm going location scouting.
I guess for those struggling to get the $10, you know, is there any advice that you could give when you were starting out and trying to raise the 26,000 or, you know, however much?
Yeah, you have to think outside the box. You have to think, who else would like to be part of this? How can I bring that together? So by putting 4 friends together, they all wanted the same goal. And so therefore, if you've got people as well that you don't have the money, but people have the equipment or they have the knowledge, say, come on, let's do this together. There are so many people out there who are wanting to work, create, and make something with 2 people. Again, people think they have this concept of what a big film is. It's not a real film unless I have a budget of over $1 million, unless I have a crew of 50 people or above, unless I'm shooting. No, that's not true. A film is a film, whether it's with 1 person or 2 people. In fact, I know someone that did shoot an entire film in COVID on his own, and it's beautiful. He acted in it, he's changed the camera, used his phone. It's fantastic. If you really want to do it, nothing will stop you.
That's great,
wow.
great inspiration for all of us. Thank you.
Yeah, it really is cool. And we want to thank you so much for being with us, for sharing your insights and your advice. And everyone, please check out Mother Daughter Entertainment, which is the name of the company. And it's motheranddaughtereent.com. Mother and spelled out daughterent.com. So please.
And our YouTube as well. Mother Daughter YouTube. That would be great.
And on and you're also on Instagram, where you're Elizabeth_B_T. So Elizabeth BlakeThomas, thank you very much for being here with us tonight. And good luck with everything. And I hope LA gets better so that you can all be out and about and the film industry can come back as it needs to.
Thank you. And listen, when I've shot the next film in a few weeks' time, I'll come back on and I'll tell you how the experience was.
Excellent.
Terrific. Thank you.
Look forward to meeting your daughter as well.
Okay, well, fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Okay, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.